Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And it looks like the lowest paid workers in Hollywood are going on strike.
Well, some of the lowest paid, but yes.
Some of the lowest paid. So IATSE members overwhelmingly approved the strike. So this could be very bad news for Disney, for Netflix, for every studio, because who's going to do all the grunt work? Who's going to make it go?
And apparently, we're going to talk about it here in a bit, but they're talking about, well, it got worse because of all the streaming.
Yeah, so very interesting. There's been a lot of chatter about whether or not this would happen for the last couple of weeks now.
We've been actually watching it for a little while now.
But it was announced, and Netflix has gone down. Disney has gone down. Yeah, because who's going to make their shit? Who's going to make it go?
Yeah, they're all going on about this big thing with Scarlett Johansson. Meanwhile, people that are getting paid very little an hour, but are expected to work, they said, some people said up to 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
One lady said she hadn't seen her kid in 5 days. All that kind of stuff. They're supposed to just deal with it at their pittance of pay. But,
It's a glamorous Hollywood life, isn't it? Glamorous Hollywood life. So we're going to talk about that, how it could affect Netflix and Disney if Hollywood's grunt workers go on strike.
Well, here's an idea. Just take a couple million from the overpaid actors and put it towards the workers.
That makes too much sense.
Or, because some of these, I'm sorry, you don't need like $50 million for a movie.
Yeah.
If they agree to it, it's in the contract, I will back you up because it's in the contract. But you really don't need $50 million for a movie when there's people who don't see their kids in 5 days and they aren't paid jack shit.
So now's the time when they decide they're gonna use more social media influencers to make content. Like, okay, you can just make content on your phone. It's kind of like the writers' strike, was it about 12 years ago, 13 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
Where they had all this reality TV because all the writers were on strike.
Yeah. Good luck with this.
Good luck with this. Good luck with this. That's okay. They can come watch YouTube.
They can come watch our channel.
They can come watch us. Yeah, we don't have any underpaid workers. We have some people that blog for us, but we don't have any
No.
fancy schmancy anything.
And speaking of watching us, if you're in the Pittsburgh area, well, it's Altoona technically, so it's an hour and a half or so from Pittsburgh. Hour? I don't know what it is. Anyway, we're going to be there this weekend for Sci-Fi Valley Con. And it's like the one time we're actually going to go to a convention because we paid for it 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's the only reason we're going, guys. We don't do a lot of conventions. We don't have time for conventions now, but this one was paid for 2 years ago.
Plus, we've kind of been a part of it since it started.
Yeah.
So we support it. So we're going to be there. Yeah.
So there you go. There you go. Your one and only chance to come see Clownfish TV in the flesh.
For now. I mean, who knows?
So
who knows what tomorrow brings? But as of now.
Anyway, let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Over 236,000 subs. We do talk about Disney quite a bit. We talk about pop culture, talk about movies, talk about Hollywood, and this is kind of a culmination of all this. This has been rumored to potentially happen for many weeks now. As low-paid workers are getting frustrated, and they are kind of cracking the whip on them now to make up for the pandemic with all the streaming content, because all these streaming providers want to just crap out as much stuff as they can.
Yep.
And it's leading to long hours, lots of overwork, and people have had enough.
Long hours for actors too, but they're paid far more money to do so. So
yeah, and that's got to be. I can see putting in the hours if there's a direct impact on your bank account. But in a lot of cases, people are salaried or whatever, their hourly, compensation's not worth.
They don't get paid anywhere near as much.
Yeah, we're talking people are getting like what, $15 an hour in LA.
They'll tell you here in I think some of these articles.
So deadline. This is just a couple hours ago. An overwhelming show of union solidarity, IATSE members have voted to authorize a nationwide strike against film and TV productions if last-ditch negotiations with the AMPTP fail to produce a fair deal. 98% in favor.
Wow, that's a lot.
Gives the union president, Matthew Loeb, indisputable authority to call strike if he and AMTP president Carol Lombardini fail to reach an agreement in the coming days. Reflecting the frustration felt by below-the-line crew, the near-total mandate is the union's first nationwide strike authorization vote and brings the union one step closer to its first-ever nationwide strike. Yeah, so this is like outside Hollywood. This is everywhere. They try to film. Sometimes they would skirt these strikes by being like, well, we'll use what they'll do is they'll use non-union workers, and we had this happen with voice actors and stuff too. People are like, why, they have like a different voice for Optimus Prime in the Netflix shows because not union.
Well, that and the fact, when Disney kind of, I think they did it with some of the performers, like in the shows, like they were talking the parks. But, it'd be really hard to replace 60,000 members.
Yep. The members have spoken loud and clear, said the boss, with the official vote result announcement coming a little later than expected at 11 a.m. The vote is about the quality of life as well as the health and safety of those who work in our film and television industries. Our people have basic human needs like meals, adequate sleep, and a weekend. For those at the bottom of the pay scale, they deserve nothing less than a living wage.
I know one woman was talking about how she wasn't given lunch. She was expected to work all these hours, and she had to eat while she was working.
I've worked jobs like that. I'm going to be honest. Now, I've never been in a union, but I have worked jobs where they tell you get a lunch break. They tease, hey, go take your lunch, Basically, taking my lunch break was sitting in my office with the door shut, eating my sandwich, because I knew I wouldn't get the amount of work done I was expected to get done.
Well, I like how you said to go outside and go around to a bench to eat, because that way they couldn't keep coming in and making you do work during your lunch break.
Yeah, I got to the point where I got fed up. I'm like, I'm not being paid nearly enough to skip lunch.
You weren't paid enough for that shit.
And I'm like, fine. So I'm going to go. I actually got my car a couple times. And I'm like, I'm going to get in my car. I'm going to go drive to the park. And I'm going to sit here and eat my damn ham sandwich in the parking lot, because that's the only way I know they're not going to bug me, because if you're in the office, they think you're technically working. And I even had somebody, like the first week I was at this one job, they're like, oh yeah, we all eat our lunches at our desks, because we work through lunch.
Well, this place doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I was like, so wait a minute. So basically, like, I get a quote unquote lunch break, but basically that's the allotted time that I can eat at my desk.
Is it a place that you were salaried, but if you went to the doctor, you were expected to make up the time?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But they could keep you out over and not pay you and say it was because you were salaried. But, if you went to the doctor, you had to make that up, which they're not supposed to do.
That was also the place that got really pissy that we didn't go to the company party, because I didn't fucking feel like it. Mm-hmm. After that kind of treatment.
Well, that's the one that had the party in like January for Christmas because they didn't want to spend the money.
Yes, because they got the venue cheaper.
Guess what? They work with the government. So hey, shocker.
Anyway. So I hope studios will see and understand the resolve of our members. The ball's in their court. If they want to avoid a strike, they will return to the bargaining table and make us a reasonable offer.
So it sounds like they refused. They weren't really like wanting to negotiate. So they're basically like, well, fine then. So it hasn't happened yet, but if it doesn't reach an agreement soon.
Yeah, so this is going to be really interesting. Now, you know what's going to happen, right? If they do reach an agreement, all the streaming services, the prices are going to go up.
Probably. They've already keep raising them anyway. Yeah, Disney for sure.
Oh, Disney for sure. They'll be like, well, because we care so much about our people now that we've been forced to, Disney Plus is going to go from $7.99 to $17.99.
Well, and Disney especially. I got to tell you a real quick sidebar for a moment. So Disney, in their infinite, wisdom and trying to price gouge the hell out of everyone, decided to release limited edition Hocus Pocus dolls, right? And there were 5,000 of each one. They're literally like Barbie dolls with a couple extra accessories. They are, the biggest one's about 12 and a half inches. The smallest one's not even 11 inches. And so they're around Barbie size, maybe Skipper. And they wanted $130 a piece for them. And of course they sold out and they're on eBay for, $200 or $300 each. But people were like, why are you charging me $130 for like a Mattel Barbie doll?
Yeah.
This is how insane Disney got with trying to gouge to make money. So do you think they're not going to jack the prices significantly? They'll use it as an opportunity to jack it beyond what they need, just to pocket that money and claim they have record-breaking profits for streaming.
Well, we see how they treat their employees, in the parks.
They'll lose subscribers as they do it, so they'll have to make more money on the ones they keep.
Yep. So some of the working conditions here. Now, this was an earlier article from the Hollywood Reporter. This guy, Victor Bowsey, he's a sound mixer. He said that he was blaming streaming.
Mm-hmm. He said some of the jobs requiring 14 to 20-hour days for weeks. That wasn't always the case, but we had since COVID, there's more drive to get a product with all these streaming platforms.
Yep. They're constantly asked to change time cards when it comes to turnaround invasions. Studio source says the AMPTP offered a daily 10-hour turnaround with exceptions for feature post-production, on-call employees, and studio publicity during negotiations. So it's basically, they got to make up lost revenue.
Well, here's some of the different stories. I read through this a little bit earlier. I think this was earlier this morning. But they were talking about, the one person was talking about how they said that they would work 6-day weeks for the entire shoot and never have a break for lunch, eat while working. I went 5 days without seeing my children.
Yeah.
Crew members have shared stories like this one on social media, detailing long hours, low wages, and grueling work conditions in today's production environment against the backdrop of new contract negotiations. Since May, the major crew union, the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, IATSE, has been hammering out details for a new basic agreement with the Association of Motion Picture and Television Producers. That's a mouthful. AMPTP. AMPTP. It's AMPTP.
AMPTP. There we go.
Because they're full of shit. Anyway, so they're talking about they want substantial rest periods, higher minimum rates for lowest paid crafts, more streaming compensation, and resources for their health and pension plans. And the talks broke down in mid-September, and this weekend, tens of thousands of the members are voting on whether to authorize their president to strike. And apparently they gave him the authorization, today.
So it's gotten pretty bad. And again, there's a lot of push to get content out because we were effectively down for a year. And Disney especially, like, they've hardly put anything out. Netflix, has a whole bunch of stuff, but like Disney's, one Marvel series at a time, one Star Wars series at a time.
Right, but they have all these other things they're doing. But apparently the crew producing them, not the stars that get all the credit, or the ones that are actually doing the work, they're being treated like shit. Now, I understand, people are like, well, you agreed to that pay. But it doesn't seem like it's just pay. It seems like what they're more upset about is the fact that they're worked, 16 to 20 hours a day. Yeah. I mean, we work sometimes 16 hours a day, but we own our own thing.
Yeah, it's different when you're the business owner. I would never expect anybody to work, for us, especially if I wasn't paying them that much, to come in and work like 16, 20 hours a day. I never would.
And not get breaks, not see your kids. I would never expect anybody to not see their child for 5 damn days. That's insane.
I've been at jobs where they basically don't care. They don't care. You're there to make them money, and they don't care.
Well, well, they're going to care soon because they're talking 60,000 members. Yeah.
Well, it's your own fault for having children, isn't it?
Yeah. They said some of the anonymous tales from crew members. They said they have over 12-hour work days. Productions initially gestured toward trying to implement a 10-hour day as recommended by the industry's top guilds. A 10-hour day was their compromise. When production restarted during the pandemic, it seemed like a lot of good faith stuff did not hold up. Mm-hmm. I've seen dramatic shifts towards not taking meal breaks at all, or meal breaks running hours behind. Seeing 14 to 16-hour days. Different person saying the same thing. Yeah. On the regular, when the soft premise was 10-hour days.
Soft promise. That means
promise. Yeah, soft. Yeah,
verbal,
but I'm like
verbal.
But 10-hour days was an improvement. I can't even.
This actually doesn't surprise me at all. Look, if somebody's worked in media for most of his career, I will tell you that, hell, the one newspaper I worked at, the Mondays, I'd go in at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'd get out of there at 11 o'clock at night. You remember?
I do.
Yeah, because you'd be waiting for me and you were not happy. Mm-mm. And there was no, they'd tell me.
That was a newspaper, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they were like, oh, hey.
Mondays.
Yeah, Mondays. They would tell me that, we want you to spend time with your family, da-da-da-da-da. And then when push came to shove, the one day I got sick or somebody got sick and I couldn't make a Monday. And then it was like, well, you're basically got one foot out the door because you skipped a Monday, and it was like, okay, I see how it actually is.
Yeah, I think someone was sick. That's why you meant.
There are a lot of soft promises made in these kinds of industries, and unless you have it in writing, it doesn't hold up. Because what we're going to find out, and this is the same kind of scenario as with Rooster Teeth, you're going to find out that a lot of Hollywood is built on the backs of underpaid, exploited workers. who've been given promises of this or promises that if you just do one more, if you just, just hang in there for, I've heard this so many times, hang in there for another couple months. Things are going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Things are going to get better. And they never do. And then what you do as a favor, well, I'll take one for the team. I'll work extra hours today. We'll not get paid, whatever. Then it becomes an expectation. Well, you worked 12 hours last week, on a Friday. You're going to do it this week, right?
Right. Or you're going to give us 13.
You give us 13.
I mean, and this isn't even like, these aren't even like the stories you hear about in animation and gaming that are the crunch. This is like their crunch every day, apparently. Yeah. So the whole thing's just messed up. I don't know. I didn't even have words for this. It's just insane. I mean, when you're hearing these stories, it's not good.
Yeah, it's not good. And it's I mean, this is Hollywood. This is the not so glamorous side of it.
Not even getting to eat. You don't get weekends. You don't get your 14 to 16-hour days, and you're not even allowed to eat. How are people not falling over?
Well, they might be. They just scrape them off the sidewalk and go get a fresh horse.
Yeah, they said this sounds very familiar. The burnout out young people. We hear this with animation. We hear this with gaming. I know with comics, workers say extra long hours that may have been sustainable when they were younger aren't now. When you're 24 years old, it's very different than when you're 44 years old. How your body can handle all that, says the director of photography and Local 600 member Patty Lee, who previously worked as an electrician and gaffer. You also see a lot of broken people at the end in their older years.
This is 100% true. And again, we're seeing this in animation. Why are there so many young people working in animation now? Because all the old dogs have been, well, you don't ride a dog. I was going to say, my mom always had an expression because she bred horses, ridden hard and put away wet.
My mom always says that too.
So you can't really ride. You could ride a dog. I guess you could ride a very big dog.
Don't ride a dog.
Or if you're very tiny, you could fit on a dog. Anyway. You see very tired, broken people in these creative fields, 40s, 50s, and same with comics too. Like by the time people get to their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're being replaced with, 22-year-olds because 22-year-old will do whatever.
At 24 years old, you're like, hey, I'm in here. You're all starry-eyed and, young and fresh and like, yes, I'm going to, in 5 years, I'm going to be working my way up. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to 44 in your exact same position you were, you've worked up a little bit, but it's still the same shit, different day. And now it seems to be worse because of streaming.
Mm-hmm.
I mean... Well, here are some of the rates. They said currently writers' assistants, assistant production coordinators, and art department coordinators make a contractual minimum of $16 an hour.
You can go to work at, we have a restaurant chain here in Western PA. It's called Sheets.
I think it's like $13 an hour.
Yeah, but that's in Western Pennsylvania. This is freaking Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, $6 an hour. Well, script coordinators make at minimum $17.64 an hour.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Oh, here's some of the things they do. While trying to learn how to make ends meet in her role, she remembers being advised by support staff colleagues to, on Fridays, take all the food that was about to expire from the kitchen, and that would be our groceries for the weekend.
Oh my God.
That was considered normal, and that was part of paying your dues.
Paying your dues.
Another person...
Eat our garbage. That's part of paying your dues.
Counts herself lucky that she's an LA native and can live at home because I can't afford to pay rent. A strike would be especially challenging for members in these roles. They're putting together a program to make the strike fund and offer financial support in the event of a strike. This sounds like what the Disney laid off cast members did for each other, where they made their own food pantries and things like that. And that was via their union. And they're making economic relief programs. I know when Broadway shut down, there were some programs for their union to help them if they needed help. That sounds like what it is. This reminds me of, was it McDonald's? Who basically, I think it was McDonald's, don't quote me on this, who gave their employees a list of, how you could live and what they pay you. Basically, it required you to get a second job. And then they didn't have things counted in there like heat.
Yeah.
And things like that. Oh, look, it's totally doable to work at McDonald's when you work 2 jobs and you don't need things like heat.
It reminds me of when I first moved out. When I was younger, obviously. But when I first moved out, like this is a totally different time period. We're talking about the 90s, but yeah, I was taking home under $1,000 a month at the one job I worked. And
even then that was pretty bad.
That was very low. But I mean, the only way I could do it is to not have any frills at all. Like
you didn't have a TV.
I didn't have a TV, but I did it. I didn't have a roommate or anything. I did it. But yeah, it's just like, I can't imagine. Now that was not LA. I can't imagine being in LA and having to do that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no. So, there's real reasons why people are doing that. When you figure they're I mean, we're seeing like similar things with Disneyland. The cast members are striking because they weren't making enough money to even get by on. I know they're celebrating in the Orlando area at Disney World because they got their raises that now I think they're making about $15 an hour, sometimes up to 17 in some of these positions. And because they said they were making 10 as of 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And they couldn't it was, you had to decide whether you're going to eat or not, and that's kind of where this is, because the prices in like LA and Orlando have gone up considerably. It's insane. Sounds like a lot of money if you live somewhere where the cost of living isn't that high.
Yeah, people are like, oh, well, you're making 6 figures. I'm like, I can tell you, as somebody who used to live in California, 6 figures doesn't go very far. If you're living in San Francisco or LA, or it's like you have to make at least 6 figures to survive decently. When you're paying $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month rent, everything else, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. They have calculators out there you can go look at where you can put in what the exchange would be like if you lived in San Francisco and you made this much money, what that would equate to other areas. Like if it was like you made $100,000 there, it might be equivalent to like $200,000 out in like the Midwest or out east. Or you could put your income in where you're at now and say you're living comfortably and you make pretty good, it'll tell you how much you'd have to make in one of these cities to have the same standard of living, and it's significantly higher. Those are always interesting to look at for this kind of thing. But I don't know. They're gonna strike. It's gonna be interesting. Hey, good news is for a place like Disney and Netflix, they have a huge catalog already. But I don't know how it's going to affect, TV shows and movies moving forward. The writer's strike did a whole lot of damage back then.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be a lot bigger than the writer's strike if it gets that far.
Absolutely. So, all right, we're going to wrap this one up.
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.